What is it that drew you to Murshidabad?
Two beautiful towns called Azimganj, Jiaganj.
What is Murshidabad today?
It is just the most beautiful sight to see. When I say Bari Kothi, people say Murshidabad.
He was trained as a lawyer in London, raised in Kolkata, and grew up hearing stories of a forgotten palace. A 250-year-old ancestral home in Murshidabad that had fallen silent with time. Most people would have left it behind, but Darshan Dudhoria chose to return. What followed was a 5-year restoration journey that brought Bari Kothi, once a symbol of Bengal's fading past, back to life. Not just as a hotel, but as a living, breathing tribute to the Sheherwāli community, to Bengal's layered heritage, and to what's possible when history meets purpose. In this episode, we explore how Darshan turned a family legacy into a movement, what it really takes to revive a crumbling palace, and why he believes that heritage isn't a luxury but a responsibility of everyone. This is the story of Bari Kothi and the man who brought it back. Welcome to Host Diaries, Mr. Dudhoria. So, Mr. Dudhoria, thank you so much for being on our podcast. It's an honor to have you on Host Diaries.
Thank you so much, Darshan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's begin by understanding a little bit about the history of Murshidabad. What is it that drew you to Murshidabad and to Bari Kothi as a project?
So, Yash, interesting you ask me that, but not a lot of people know this, and it was quite funny that when I mentioned this, I think in another event, and there was a huge storm caused around this particular statement. Murshidabad contributed 5% of the world's GDP.
World's GDP.
5% of the world's business was happening in this small district town called Murshidabad in Bengal. Right, and you Google this and you look at a variety of textbooks, and this is undisputed. So people coming and challenging and saying this, that, it doesn't work. This is the fact. There's no changing that. So this is around 1700s. A lot of our family members our community is called the Sheherwāli community, and we'd migrated from Rajasthan primarily on account of the boom in business in Bengal. And at this point in time, when the British come in, Murshidabad was at its peak. Textile, business in general, in terms of money lending, which is what brought our community to fame. And in this point in time, the palaces that got built, right from, I'm not going deep down history, but right from Hazardwari Palace, which is a palace of 1,000 doors, and the sheer global influence of architecture, the global influence of culture, the global influence of cuisine in all our family houses, our family meals, it all sort of boils down into that. And you'd be so surprised and amazed. You look at these palaces and you'll see a bit of French architecture, you'll see a bit of Roman architecture, you'll see a bit of Greek architecture, and then you'll have a little bit of British architecture and blended with Bengal architecture. It is just the most beautiful sight to see. And yes, I can keep talking about it. Even we are Jains, and this is the only place in the world where you would see Jain temples with Mughal architecture. Maybe back in the days it was called architecture, or there's a theory, very interesting theory, that you would save a temple from getting broken down back in the days because it looked like a mosque. And hence the Mughal architecture came into Jain. Now, I'm not getting any bit of religious politics into this. What I'm trying to say, how time evolves and how architecture gets built, and how when you say, oh my God, this got blended with this, it doesn't happen overnight. There are always some deep-rooted causes that sort of leads into this architectural evolution. So, Murshidabad, again, district, two beautiful towns called Azimganj, Jiaganj, separated by the river Ganges. Documented fact, Azimganj, Jiaganj, which is called the Twin Cities. So the twin city of Azimganj, Jiaganj had more wealth than the combined wealth of the British aristocracy.
Oh, wow.
The combined wealth of the British aristocracy. This is a village in a village. If you were to deem Murshidabad to be a village today, back in the days it was the capital of Bengal, and it was as flourishing as ever. And in there, these two towns had so much of wealth, and time spares no one. And the river changed its course. It ate the most beautiful palaces. It literally just changed its course. And palaces were literally eaten by the river. One thing leads to the other. Capital shifts from Murshidabad to Calcutta. Calcutta is not as important as Delhi. The Indian capital then further shifts in 1911 to Delhi. And then gradually we kept getting left behind in the race of development, the race of economics, the race of evolution for all practical purposes. And then when I came into the scene, which is say early 2000s, when we just grappled with understanding what's going on in life, had just uh, uh, finished our education, so to say, formal education. Informal education will go on for the rest of our lives. And Murshidabad was this horror show. You would not be able to leave a bulb outside the door of your house. Next morning, or maybe 2 hours later, it would be stolen. That was the state of Murshidabad. All our palaces are in the region were all abandoned, and this is from early 90s. Right, I'm going back in time now. Uh, there was massive Naxalite movement prior to that, and this is a time where it was so bad that when you would see people coming and say, for example, stealing something from the house, it wasn't just theft; it was a statue where the head would just be cut off. So it's not your statue, it's not my statue. The head needs to be cut off. In no one's statue. So this was the level of violence. This was the level of aggression that this place had, and it was literally a horror show. I distinctly remember my grandfather telling me that it's quite interesting again that all these families had arms licenses, and all these families had a lot of swords. And back in the days, Bari Kothi itself, the highest number of people living at Bari Kothi were possibly 8, with
Oh, wow.
about 100 other security personnel and support staff. So with that number of support staff and team members being there, it was the government mandate that we can't protect you, so you build your mini armies. We will facilitate licenses by way of arms license and allowing security personnel to carry weapons. And you build your mini armies and you save yourself. And that's how, so you would tend to think, if someone needs to, show a point a finger and say, oh my God, you're trying to show royalty, that you're 8 people and you've got 150 guards. No, these 8 people are scared that their lives would get taken. No, 150 people are not required to protect 8 people. 1,000 people who will be attacking you, that 150 people are supposed to protect against those 1,000 people. The history of Murshidabad is primarily around Sheherwāli, and that's one notable figure. The second is, of course, Mir Zafar, and then there's Robert Clive. These are the, say if you were making a film, these were your main characters who were coming in. And it is very interesting how history has painted Mir Zafar to be the absolute villain, the Battle of Plassey, and how he completely betrayed Sirajuddaula. And it's so interesting that modern day historians, I'm not naming all of them for the sake of brevity, but these guys have come in and with established facts are now challenging that who said Mir Zafar was the traitor? Is it true that Mir Zafar was the traitor? Who was Sirajuddaula? Now, if you look at certain written text, modern books coming out, you will be surprised with the character form of Sirajuddaula. Again, not getting into the thick and thin of those. You asked Murshidabad, and I'm telling you all facets of Murshidabad over the last 200 years. And for me to read about this side of Sirajuddaula and to see how Mir Zafar was depicted in history, and then to see this other side, which is actually completely the opposite, and you actually start wondering that does history always have two sides? Because the person who's writing down is what is going down generations, and then when someone goes back and challenges that first initial thought, and that sort of completely changes the perspective. So the Naxalite movements, all of this, so arms license, I remember I would have been possibly 5 years, 6 years old. We would tremble with the name Azimganj, Murshidabad, Bari Kothi, and to go there, oh my God, it would just be a nightmare. My father would have to carry guns, licensed guns. We would sleep at night with a gun under his pillow, just in case something happened. And imagine for a 5-year-old boy, it's not the best place to be. And but electricity is barely there, so you pretty much are sure if you're there for maybe 2 nights. One night surely would have zero electricity. The other night would possibly have electricity for a few hours. And back in the days, the houses were made in a manner where every room didn't have an attached washroom. So you would have to go from one place to the other, fearing that would someone come. And now here, the fear of ghosts is not there, interestingly. It's the fear of humans who actually were attacking, right? Us, for our family in particular, it was just getting those calls every monsoons saying that बाबू ये वाला दीवार यहाँ का गिर गया, बहुत तेज़ बारिश आई, ये दीवार गिर गया. अच्छा ठीक है, आप इसको सफाई करवाइए, किसी को चोट नहीं लगा, कहीं कुछ नहीं हुआ, ग्रेट. Next time again, बाबू ये 2 और दीवार चले गए, बाबू ये पूरा बिल्डिंग गिर गया. So this is how we lived up looking at our own heritage, right? And that's the beauty, because you abandon, you don't look back. This is a place which has a negligible economy. There are no jobs. With that thought process to grow up, I went off to a boarding school, spent the larger part of my life at Sindhya, which was the best and my most formative years. And from there, I was transported off to London, and I did my law there. I qualified as a solicitor there. And then one fine day, and I'm not exaggerating, it's that moment. So I left home when I was 7 years old, 8 years old. And from the time you're 8 to possibly now you're 20, you don't understand living in a structured family setup. You don't understand birthdays, anniversaries of the larger family, and having a family do once a week, etc. You've not grown up with those societal norms. And then overnight, and I was very scared. Would I ever be able to fit in? Would I want to be, our family is very social. Would I want to be social, etc.? And believe it or not, it was just that 7-day decision where I was offered a job, and I had to join this within 7 days. And literally on the 4th day, I just packed my bags, no thoughts, just came back to Calcutta. No idea what am I doing, no idea why am I doing. I just come back. And I think your question, why, how, certain things, I don't know if you believe in destiny or you believe in Charles Darwin and evolution and DNA, blood, roots, all these keywords, question mark, question mark, question mark, you just come back for one of these for sure. We're having an event at Bari Kothi, and we, the entire family at large, went in. I was married then. My wife is from Delhi. Wanted her to also see Bari Kothi, and we went in there and we saw this beautiful courtyard, which is the main sort of courtyard of Bari Kothi. And hey, my next generation would never be able to see or understand what our forefathers were, what the community at large was. This wasn't personal. This was more about, hey, what I feel standing in this courtyard, just visualizing what this space was used as, what these people were, how much they created impact in the community. Our kids will never know this. And why am I feeling this today? Is because of one building. So what is super interesting in history is that if people need to uproot societies, all you have to do is just level out buildings. Your society is gone, your culture is gone, your art's gone, primarily speaking. And of course, I make a generic point, but think about it. Old house, boom, gone, no attachment, you're not going back to that place. No matter what stories are, it'll die out in another generation. So what you've done is essentially wipe that out. And in absolute reverse for what happened to us. Of course, I loved what our family did. Of course, I loved was very, still am and will always be to my end, extremely proud about being a Sheherwāli, extremely proud about the values that our community holds and what we hold as a family. And I think just because we decided, standing at that courtyard at that point in time, that our kids possibly need to understand this feeling, feel this feeling, right? And that was the key marker to just save that one courtyard. And I think today, when both my kids are 10 and 6, I think we've been, I won't say successful, but we've been able to somewhere pass on those values where they are equally proud of being a Sheherwāli, about being a community member. So my point being that how that building attaches that particular feeling of an anchor to cultural ties and values. Decided to save that courtyard. One thing led to the other, and I strongly feel this. I don't know.
A building is that important in society, isn't it? Because it holds your art, it holds your all your relationships, all your memories, the ethics that your family has come up with, the value systems, they're all housed and they all were created in that structure. So I think it's very well put that if you level out a city, you're eradicating it of its soul, and everything will just vanish. And it shows how important a building to preserving it is, and preservation of history and heritage. I got a great idea about what Murshidabad was, let's say a couple decades ago. What is Murshidabad today?
It's the unknown. From being one of the richest parts of the world, it is now the unknown wealth capital of the world. I think wealth is very subjective, and what it has today, and what uh, I just fell in love. I grew up as a corporate lawyer, and I understood Excels, and I understand private equity. I understand numbers primarily. So if you go on to community, you go on to intangible heritage, you go on to any kind of feelings, doesn't rock my boat. Didn't rock my boat. And while Bari Kothi was, so to answer your question would take more than one sentence, because what today Murshidabad is, and I'm very proud and possibly may sound borderline arrogant to suggest that a lot of what Murshidabad has been able to reclaim its glory, Bari Kothi has played possibly a 5% part in that journey. And even at 5%, I feel I may be borderline arrogant because it's just the start of our journey. But I know for a fact that there would be a time where I would be talking about Bari Kothi to a lot of people, and the first thing people would say, Murshidabad, अच्छा ये तो उत्तर प्रदेश में है ना? नहीं वो आपका नहीं बिहार के पास है. I'm like नहीं वो मुजफ्फरपुर है. And then I had to explain all the rhyming words of towns similar to Murshidabad. And today, when I say Murshidabad, people say Bari Kothi. When I say Bari Kothi, people say Murshidabad. And immediately someone would say, but it's 5 hours away from Calcutta. And someone else would say, hey, no, it's 4 hours away from Calcutta. And someone else would say, नहीं अब roads बहुत अच्छे बन गए. Oh नहीं नहीं बहुत सारा train connectivity. Oh Vande Bharat भी जाता है. So now we are at that level of chatter, all in a journey of 6, 7, 8 years.
Fantastic.
So that to me is so to answer your question, that what is it today? You'll have to go slightly deeper down in my little 10-year history with Bari Kothi and Murshidabad. So it's quite interesting that we were hosting Shri Ravi Shankar ji for Guruji for a meal at Bari Kothi, and he was in Azimganj. And most extraordinarily, so when you decide something needs to happen, I promise you there are different forms of energy that come, and they will make sure it happens. How, what? It's something that only you can, with the power of hindsight, sort of be able to see. This gentleman, I'm going on a different story which is connected to this. This gentleman walks into one of our stores. So we essentially, our family legacy business, we're into sarees, and coincidentally my mother was in that store. She's there once a week in that store, and she was there, and this gentleman walks in and he says, Canadian gentleman, and he'd come with his 2 daughters and his wife, and he said that I'm looking to get a sari. And of course he was struggling, the team was struggling to speak in a language suitable to the Canadian. So my mother was there, so conversation started, and one thing led to the other, and the person said, you know what, I've just come to Bengal for one thing. I've come to see the Murshidabad terracotta temples, and I'm an architect, and I've just come to see these, nothing else. So my mother coincidentally says that we are going tomorrow to Murshidabad. We've got an absolute ruined of a palace. You're more than welcome to come and stay. There are 100 rooms for all you want. none of them are functional except one or two. So you're happy to stay wherever you want to till the time you're comfortable. Or there are many other hotels, but we can at least, with our staff there, we at least can, show you around and make you see the terracotta temples. And she was just being as Sheherwāli as she can, which is being a perfect host. And the gentleman says, I'll take you up on that offer. I'll come with you guys if you don't mind. You go with the family, I'll come along with you. Okay, come. And why are we going? We're going to because Shishi Guruji is coming in for lunch. So hence we were going. So this guy tags along. He has no idea someone's coming. Now, Guruji is walking into Bari Kothi, the main entrance of Bari Kothi, which Bari Kothi has had for the larger part of 200 years maybe. Guruji is walking in, and obviously he comes with a larger group and, walking in. And he literally does pranam. And he's just suddenly uncomfortable. And he just turns and he wants to leave. And we are like, what just happened? This lady who was there, and she possibly figured, and she said, Guruji, यहाँ से भी रास्ता है, तो सीधा नहीं जाके आप left से भी जा सकते हैं. And then he very reluctantly started looking down. अच्छा यहाँ से भी है. And then he went up. He went to the first floor, spent the larger part of 3-4 hours. We had a great time. What a energy, etc., etc. And he went back. And obviously, when he went, we were perplexed. We were like, what the hell just happened? And then this guy, this architect, was just quietly standing behind. He had no idea what's going on. So he said, I have no idea who Guruji is, etc. But whoever he is, I'm assuming he's a holy man. And he's holy man essentially, from a Western perspective, what he was saying is that he's very sensitive to energy forms. So he's like, you know what? This is the worst entrance as per Vastu that you can have, is the entrance of death. So possibly when he's coming in, he's feeling very repulsed that he's not invited here. So the moment he was shown another way to go in, another direction to go in, this guy has gone in and he's probably had a great time. And he said that, so I'm a restoration champion and I would love to, if you guys, obviously we got into conversation about, how we would like to save this courtyard, etc. And he said that, please, if you guys allow me, I would love to pitch my ideas and I'd love to take up this job. I'll stay here and I'll restore this particular courtyard, but with one condition, you have to seal this entrance. And there's an entrance for the last 200 years that the family has used. So my father also looked at me, he's like, I understand you being mad, but don't go so mad that you'll, So I don't know. I just saw a lot of logic into it, and I'm not getting into the Vastu Shastri of things.
Was it in the southwest?
It was on the southwest,
yeah.
And very interestingly, if you look at Vastu, since you touched upon that, and if you look onto the deeper bits of Vastu, northeast is where is where Ganga is flowing, and Bari Kothi's northeast is actual Ganga flowing.
Oh wow!
So it's as real as it gets. And we then flipped the entrance from the southwest to the northeast, which is the front of the house now became the rear of the house and vice versa. And we made, anyways, long story short, so we started restoring this courtyard, got a pat on the back, National Geographic covered it. We said, oh, we are doing a great job. And while we were doing that, we would just now suddenly start going every week. And I was doing every 5 days, 5 hours drive, 6 hours drive. Back then, reach in there, so start at 8 p.m. after work from Calcutta, reach at about 1 a.m., spend 2 hours around in different pockets of Bari Kothi, just understanding the energy, what it could be, how it could be, and just started enjoying the whole process of what Bari Kothi could be and what Bari Kothi was and what it could be. As simple. We just started doing this every weekend for 5 years. Every week for 5 years. And my architect is there. He's left everything in Canada. He's now forgotten about his family. He's forgotten everything. And he's now dedicatedly over there. And the first thing he says is, send me a carpenter, send me plumber, send me this, send me that. And I'm like, where am I going to send you this? And plus, when you do these projects, you don't, like with Bari Kothi. So very, very interesting, and I'm going off topic, but so very recently I was talking about this, and I very strongly feel that we look at heritage very wrongly, Yash. We look at heritage very, very wrongly. We look at heritage from a very बेचारा perspective. अरे यार टूटा हुआ बिल्डिंग है, इसको बचा लो, खराब हो गए, चलो इसको ठीक कर दो, मर रहा है, इसको ऐसे. So I think the time has come where you start looking at heritage from a very different perspective. Time has come now when you start looking at heritage as a opportunity, as a commercial activity, as a startup, as a entrepreneurship mission, right? The moment you start looking at it, you will be surprised with the mathematics of heritage economics, with the satisfaction of being in the heritage business. So business after a while, and I'm sure everyone in their own course realizes this, and I in my own course have realized this, but business is not about money. The last thing in scalable enterprises is money, right? You're not an investor in your business. You are invested fully in your business, but you're not looking at returns which are monetary. Here business is essentially, after a while, it's not money, it's about creation and satisfaction, right? So it has to matter in whichever way. So I call it impact. So for me, if you can, while you make money, so that's what in my head, people use this word, very fancy word, sustainability, right? Very very fancy. हर चीज में आप लगा दो sustainability. फर्नीचर सस्टेनेबल हो जाएगा, आपका बैम्बू स्ट्रॉ सस्टेनेबल हो गया, आपका you name it and it's sustainable.
It's like a bastardized word.
It's overused.
Yeah, it's overused. You don't even know. You can have something which is moderately sustainable and something which is truly sustainable, and the same word is used for both of them.
Correct. And I think it's misused. It's somewhere, it's become a fad. We didn't tick mark any of these, and I'll be absolutely rank honest. I didn't know about the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, 17 of them, before I started the restoration work at Bari Kothi. I had no idea, right? And I'm sure most of us would have no idea. And we were doing Bari Kothi from our heart. Simple thing, the guy said, give me plumber, electrician, da 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 da. I couldn't get, as it is, there's zero talent in Murshidabad. Everyone's gone out. This entire migrant issue worker, da da da. Now to send people from Calcutta to Murshidabad, वहाँ कहाँ जाएंगे, कहाँ रहेंगे, नहीं वहाँ नहीं जाना है, we'll get here. Plus the cost aspect of it, that whoever you send will charge you double. So then this guy, who we nicknamed the magician, our architect, so he essentially got the local guys, and he said if he found a half working plumber, he trained him to be a full plumber. Gradually the plumber became electrician, the electrician became the carpenter, some farmer became electrician. So everyone at some point in time started upskilling. Now these are fancy words that I learned in the process, but we were doing not because we are following a syllabus. We are not doing it because there's a checklist. We are doing it because it's the need of the hour, right? And again, coming back to my first point, that you need to make that happen, right? And believe it or not, there was more than maybe 100, 150 people at one point in time working, none of them skilled in the truest form of the word skilled. All of them were skilled on the job. And before you know, with using the local community, we restored the whole of Bari Kothi. Right?
That's amazing. That's amazing. And apart from just using the community to build the Bari Kothi, I'm sure you have also used the community to run Bari Kothi, be it all the people who currently work over there in the kitchen or elsewhere. I'm not sure if you have any rituals or any evening traditions that you maintain. Maybe some things of quintessentially Murshidabad that you keep alive in the Kothi. But I presume in that aspect also the manpower is all from the local communities over there?
So yeah, spot on. So when we, again, did we plan this? Absolutely not. Did we completely sit on our drawing board and strategize this? Absolutely not. While we were doing this restoration, of course, now you've got a grand team, you know the skill set of people. And more importantly, I could see someone suddenly buy a bicycle. I saw 10 people getting married. I saw 20 people built a house. Now people would say, oh, thank you, you've done this. No, they were working. They restored, they've earned their wage. I've not done anyone a favor at all. All I've done is created an ecosystem, provided an opportunity, and everyone's worked hard to get what they've done at their own strength and their own skill. And yes, this sheer satisfaction. And I'm telling you, till you don't experience changing someone's life, You will not understand, anyone would not understand the meaning of impact. You have to change one life, be it someone who's attached at home or at work or whatever it is, right? You have to change that one life. And once I was able to see that change, whether I caused it or not is a wholly different, the ecosystem caused it. And I was overjoyed. And then we realized that, hey, you know what? Let's train them. And they're the finest. They speak the best. They're most clean-hearted because for them this is life. And these, what is beautiful as a thought process for us while we were going back and forth thinking, we felt when we came back to Bari Kothi that we were aliens in our own land, because you had abandoned for 50 larger part of a century, 50 odd years. You had locked the place down. You had no interest of coming back. Now, you know what? Socioeconomic troubles, etc. That's all different. You were not there. Now you've come back. So you're aliens in your own land, right? And now to further try and bring more aliens and hotel management trained personnel and it doesn't work. And then we realized this was more real and it was more genuine and this is more authentic. So my favorite two words to describe Bari Kothi, and if someone said that, no, please, well, I love your stories, define Bari Kothi in two words. I say genuine, authentic. So what we tried to preserve was the people of Bari Kothi, the people of Azimganj, is what Bari Kothi is. And that's what we want to show. So if you come to Bari Kothi, you're not going to get like spick span Rajasthan palace with all polished marbles and your
White
tables
linen and
white,
top.
white linen. Now we have
Extreme water pressure, beautiful.
So it's you would have to. We realize that we are in Bengal. We are in a absolute village in a village in Bengal, and this is a part of it. And our naukas, which is the boats, are not bajaras. They are not fancy in any manner. We don't want to make it fancy, right? Why? Two reasons. A, genuine, authentic. So you've got the bamboo boats that are sailing. Second, of course, it's a commercial project. Imagine the first guy who said thank you to us was the boatman. He said, बाबू आप लोग के वजह से ना इतना जो मूवमेंट होने लगे मेरा इनकम ट्रिपल हो गया थैंक यू सो मच Now imagine something as simple as that. Someone coming in to start with, how many people in the city have come to you and said, you've made my life better? You name one person. Today a parent doesn't tell a son doesn't tell a parent, a friend doesn't tell another friend. Like, that's the most difficult acknowledgement one person would give to the other, right? And here, this is a legit acknowledgement someone's giving, saying, you have tripled my income and changed my life. Thank you so much. So these were the little bits that we realized was aiding and abetting our cause of being offering a very genuine, authentic experience, which then becomes a new experience. We had a very simple thing. So when people said Sheherwāli food, and what is Sheherwāli food? Typically, we are vegetarians. So you look at a Rajasthani cuisine. So if I'm generalizing it, it's Indian food in different forms, right? What's so special in it? Again, वो बड़ा सा थाली ले आओ, उसमें 25 चीज डाल दो, and we realized, no, this is not going to work. So it has to have something deeper which people can understand. So we broke this into a very interesting concept. We said, Indians have this habit, our community at large has this habit, हम हर चीज को हर चीज से मिला के खाते हैं. So the best of the best सब्जी अगर होगा, उसको एक best of the best दूसरी सब्जी से, उसको best of the best दाल से, तीनों को एक साथ करके, then with best of the best रोटी के साथ हम उसको मिला के. So now you've got an explosion of everything in your mouth, and you have no idea which one best is the other to the other best. So I said, let's break it down. Most simply, this is how I looked at our food. Because individually, all of them were so good, but you would always say, iske saath isko mila ke khao. So, great. So we broke it down. So we did a never done before. Possibly, community who looked at us said, I understand your madness, but this is now taking it to another level where possibly you're insulting the community also. Now you've got a 7-course, 11-course Sheherwāli meal. So enough of anglicizing that the earlier the colonialist regime didn't. So, but my intent was obviously different. So we started simply. We have something called dal ka pani. right? So as Jains हम उपास करते हैं, उपास करने के बाद next day जब पारना होता है, which is breaking your fast, one of the first things that is offered is dal ka pani. Why? High on protein, good for the digestive system, etc. And actually lovely soup. So the first course, which was the soup, we get dal ka pani. Now, what I just explained to you, we did a storytelling meal where everything that came to you, I simplified it in one sentence. But when you understand the depth of dal ka pani and how not simple it is in usage, in thought, you'd be amazed. And that's just the starter. So along with that, we did a manifold storytelling session, which was essentially whatever there is in your plate is there for a reason, how it has come to Murshidabad, what is the socio-economic evolution of the society that has bought that food. So something very simple, we call it pitor, right? Which is khandvi for Gujaratis.
Oh, very nice.
Now how did khandvi land up Gujarat? How did that land up on this plate in Murshidabad with the name pitor? Now the khandvi is laced with mustard, which is wholly Bengali, and has other little mixtures around it. And you'd be amazed why, because Sheherwālis were Jains. Jains did pilgrimages in Gujarat. They spent larger part of 3 months, 4 months in Gujarat doing pilgrimages. While they were there, they started eating khandvi. They brought that khandvi thought process back here. But again, they were overruled in their taste buds of certain ingredients of Bengal. Now you mix together, do a fusion food, let it last for 100 years, where it self evolves, and you've got pitor. Right? And this is how, and this is one very basic thing, this is how across the board our Sheherwāli cuisine has evolved. We've got something called खीरे का कचौड़ी, right? So as it is, people love कि आप आलू नहीं खाते हो, आप प्याज नहीं खाते हो, आप anything underground नहीं खाते हो, तो आप खाते क्या हो? Like, my brother-in-law who's in Delhi, in fact, two of them, and they all love all kinds of food. And one thing they don't love for a fact is any of the God family members, which is कद्दू, लौकी, खीरा, झींगा, जो क्या बोलते हैं उसको आप, whatever the झींगा is a Bengali word, झींगा का तरोई. So all of, fundamentally, that's like, please don't get this on the table, we will walk away. And our food is primarily around this, right? Apart, so it's different kinds of. So when the first set of guests came in, who were the Swiss guests, we were told, we were just hosting them for lunch. They weren't staying, and we were told by the company, the travel company was getting them. There were 30 of them. They said, please, you do up a buffet and you do a translation card. Otherwise, people won't understand. That was the first time I understood what is a god, and the second I understood what all of these names of vegetables that I told you are all different forms of god. Pointed god, long god, short god, this god, that parval aa gaya isme, everything is coming. So these two, my brother-in-law, hate from the bottom of the heart. And we serve different forms of that. So after these guys ate it, not knowing what they're eating, because if I make you eat pointed gourd with something, you're like, ठीक है, देखते pointed gourd कैसा है, आपको तो पता नहीं वो परवल है, so आपने pointed gourd खा लिया, and you're like, not bad. अब वो दिल्ली जाके वापस pointed gourd खा रहे हैं, not knowing what it is. So my bit is that when you evolve, when you do this storytelling, and when you break down food, and you see how Sheherwālis have got influenced over the last 200 years with Rajasthani food, with Bengali food, with a lot of interesting elements of Mughal food. So we've got something called Kadbel ka Pachak, which has a lot of essence of Mughal ingredients in, and you'd be absolutely surprised of how all these cultural forms have seeped into our food, and you've got something tremendous. So this Kheera kachori that I was mentioning to you, so imagine in a kachori, you should have aloo. आपने उसको भी वायलेट कर दिया, फिर आप आलू का एक स्टेप ब्रदर लेके आते हो, केला. अब आप हर चीज में केला बना के आप खिलाते हो, अब वो केला को भी आपने वायलेट कर लिया, और आपने खीरा कैसे, how have you put खीरा in a kachori? So if you look at any chef, or you know, from a cuisine, you can't, वो मतलब,
it'll become watery,
and it doesn't. And then how you sort of make that, and that's our signature dish, and we've tied up with ITC. And if you ever get a chance at ITC Royal Vega, please go. You'll get to eat the Sheherwāli thali, which will also include the khire ka kachori.
I will. That's
So-
a really cool thing. I didn't even know that there's something called a Sheherwāli thali,
Right.
and that there are so many cultures that are influencing it. It's not like there are about four. You said there's Mughal, there's Rajasthani, there's Gujarati. You know, there's a Jain.
Jain thing is
it's-
Islamic food comes in also at
it's
some
all
level.
sort of a culmination of so
Correct,
many cultures coming on a plate together. So this is what is essentially served in Bari Kothi.
Well, amongst others, yes. So we do this storytelling. So we don't. So everything. So Bari Kothi is not. So we don't accept. We don't accept any kind of sort of come stay the night and go away tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So no simple stays. So you have to buy into an experience, because again these are not textbook things, but we learned simple things. Someone came and they said कि नहीं हमें तो दूसरा खाना खाना है या कुछ और करना है, and they would be by themselves. They did their own thing. किसी का तबीयत खराब हो गया, किसी का ये नहीं अच्छा नहीं लगा खाना, and then what has got blamed? Murshidabad. So it was never about Bari Kothi for us. So it was about the experience you were having around the region, and then we realized that we let go of bookings. But if you come, you have to. Every hour of the day will be planned by us. आप हमारे साथ बैठो. We will customize your itinerary.
Like a curated experience.
Full curator. These are fancy words that people put in,
Yeah.
like you said, and we ourselves put in. But the thought was not. The thought was simply कि आपको हम ही कराएंगे जो करना है.
और ये कितने दिन का experience होता
So
है?
typically we do a 3-night experience, which essentially, so say for example, if you like textiles, so we'll do a textile tour. You like cuisine, we'll do a cuisine tour of Murshidabad. You like heritage, we'll do heritage. Some people say, नहीं हमें सभी चीज कोई no specific, which is mostly if I'm going to a new place somewhere in the world, I'll just be like, no, I'd love to try all of it. Then we've got a signature, I want to see it all itinerary, where we do a bits of everything, but every hour of your day is planned by us.
Lovely.
You are in absolute control. The experience is in absolute control, and what that enables, in after that, if someone says I didn't like Murshidabad, I am up for a conversation. I didn't like Bari Kothi, I am up for a conversation. But without doing the experience, if you come to me and say I didn't like Murshidabad, I don't want to have a conversation, because you've not seen Murshidabad the way it should be seen. And that to me is the beauty of any kind of immersive travel experience, immersive cultural experience. We started something called we did a Durga Puja. So essentially, Sheherwāli households never had Durga Pujas of their own, but we started Durga Puja at Bari Kothi, as you asked, that with the community, for the community. How do you imbibe? So it's not about Bari Kothi. It's again fully about the community and how times have changed, and you're now hands in glove, and they're the ones who are running the show. And Durga Puja is a very big part of Bengal, of who we are. And we took a pledge, and if you do Durga Puja at home, then there's conceptually you've committed to do it for 9 years. So now we are on our 5th year, and it's an experience. So it's not about now Durga Puja, come see the pandal, see the god, pranam karo, aap chale gaye. The question is, ये क्यों हो रहा है? आप इतने, the amount of rituals behind Durga Puja, you will be awed, right? You have to, matlab, there is at least 50 smaller rituals that happen in that 3-day period, or in extended period also. And what we make our guests do is make them experience those little bits that makes up Durga Puja. So Durga Puja is looked at two ways. One is an arts festival point of view, where it's beautiful depiction of different kinds of art and talent. And the second is the religious aspect, or the
Spiritual,
mythological,
yeah.
or the spiritual aspect of it, and we immerse you entirely in that. So now people from across the world come in, stay with us for 3 nights, just to experience every bit of it. So those are little things that you bring in, and it becomes super special.
Amazing. So, yeah, what I was reading about Bari Kothi, especially the architecture of Bari Kothi, that there are, and you also said it in the podcast, that there's Greek, there's Roman influence, there's British influence, obviously amalgamated with Bengali architecture, because we're in Bengal. So, when you go about preserving something like this, how do you decide what to preserve and what not to preserve?
A very good question, and I think it starts from what do you want to do with it. So
Okay.
if you were restoring with the purpose of keeping it as a museum, so I first strongly feel that if any through your this medium, if there are any heritage enthusiasts, heritage custodians like ourselves who want to do something with their heritage asset, I think the first question that people should ask themselves is, what do you want? What is the end goal? A. B. अगर आपने एक पुराने बिल्डिंग को बचा लिया, अब आप, you've raised funds from somewhere, you have money, your hard earned money, आपने कर लिया. 3 generations later, someone doesn't have money, God forbid, doesn't have money, he cannot do it. Again, it comes to the same form. So for me, and we touched upon that word and then we laughed and went away, sustainability. So for me, there is sustainable heritage tourism, or the sustainability aspect in heritage tourism or restoration comes from the fact is, whatever you do, if you're able to ensure that it self-sustains, essentially whatever you've spent in that, now you've done as a one big corpus, you've spent money, now it needs repair maintenance costs so it doesn't go back to the same stage. That's the goal. Make sure it earns that amount of money by itself so it can uphold itself well past when you are not there. And that to me becomes a very large part of that sustainability quotient. And the other part is that while you're restoring and while you're doing it, please make minimal disturbance to the ecosystem around you. Now, it's a very big thing that I've said, and it's a very large canvas, and that's pretty much it. So don't disturb the local community, climate ka dhyan rakh lijiye, all the 17 SDGs ko aap le lo. Ultimately, that's the goal. Please do minimal interruptions around you and do it in a sustainable. So, having said that, we with Bari Kothi, we now take utmost pride that it runs as a self-sustaining mechanism. And then coming back to the point that, once you figure if you want to do it as a museum, then there is a certain way of looking at it. Now, if you suddenly decide you want to run it as a hotel, then you have to have attached washrooms, you have to have a room, you have to have a common area, you have to have a restaurant.
So you built that.
So we had to, so that's called adaptive reuse in the technical sense of it. So we used also, Bari Kothi is a zero wastage project. Everything, all the termite khaya hua wood, we used it, scraped it out, we reused it, treated it, and then so it's zero wastage. We've completely upcycled and recycled whatever material was available, and using principles of adaptive reuse, we did what we did.
Oh, lovely. And how many rooms does the property have right now?
So we've got 15 suites, and with the grace of God, in the next maybe 2 years we'll have 50. So we are now
50.
We are embarking on a slightly larger mission of expanding in and around Bari Kothi, and we'll see how that rolls out. But that's the goal, because we see there's a huge potential. And yes, through you, and particularly to you also, would like to share that how these small projects have such a big power. You have created, essentially through Bari Kothi, we've created literally a mini economy in that region. We, through that one project of 15 suites, have indirectly, directly impacted more than 2,000 lives, financially, non-financially. So imagine if you're able to replicate this across, what momentum you could gain. With one Bari Kothi, happy to share, there are 3 other hotels that have opened in the region. Now together, earlier people would cry that hum aa to jayenge Murshidabad mein, rahenge ka. I want to stay in a nice place. Where can I stay? Today, happy to share, Murshidabad at large has more than 100 rooms to offer, 100 great rooms to offer.
You can have a wedding there.
We can have a wedding there. So imagine Bari Kothi being 15 out of that 100. It just shows A, the power of the region, B, of how one small move can change the narrative of a particular region. And that, I think, is a very replicatable model.
Lovely. So I want to go deeper into Bari Kothi, because I think we've got a great idea about Murshidabad. We've spoken about the history. We've spoken about what it is today and how in the broader context it's evolving. But a lot of our viewers are obviously travelers, people who are seeking these experiences. I want you to tell me a little bit about what persona or what kind of traveler is drawn to a property like yours.
Yes, the world is changing. If you ask me that question pre-COVID, I would have given you one answer. Bari Kothi was not made for the domestic traveler at all. I possibly couldn't even think that people like you and me would pay 20,000 rupees a night, 15,000 rupees a night, go stay in a village look, which is run by a community, a local community, look at heritage, art, culture, I would be, no ways, it's not going to work. When we were also doing this project, we were sort of very ambitious in our heads for a variety of reasons, which can be a matter of another round of discussion. But this was typically for the elderly foreign community who are out there to travel and see the world from a very different lens. And around post-COVID time, things completely changed for us because people couldn't travel out, etc., couldn't go. They gave us a chance. So Calcutta gave us a chance, and the one thing led to the other. And as I said, whatever we were doing was coming right from the heart. If we were serving food, making food, doing any experience, just came from the heart. And now I'm happy to share. I was shocked. There are couples coming for their first anniversary. There are people who've come for their first anniversary. Now the boy's side is getting his side of the family. Now the mother's side is getting her side of the family. The wife is getting her side of the family. And now they're coming for the 25th anniversary. They're coming for a 40th birthday. They're coming for a 70th birthday. There is a couple who have come from France to celebrate their 50th anniversary, to get married in the local customs of Bengal, and our entire team was their wedding guests.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So, what are the kind of people? I don't know. I think now it's literally end-to-end spectrum of travelers get, and I strongly feel cultural tourism is now the future of tourism, and you'll be surprised at how our generation, Gen Z, etc., are all looking at something more authentic, more real, more impactful. Happy to share with you, and I take utmost pride, and I just recalled, and I have to share, people who come with us stay for 2 nights, 3 nights, right? Imagine the impact when I use that word. At least 10%, which is a high, very, very high number, 10% of our guests continue to be in touch with our team for at least 2, 3, 4 years and on.
After they've left.
After they've left. I have at least 30 people in my mind, as I say this statement, who celebrate their birthdays and anniversaries by doing a video call with our team.
Unbelievable.
There are people who will send on their anniversaries, birthdays, 50 saris, 50 kurta pajamas for our team, saying that please, it's our birthday, it's our anniversary, we wanted to please, this is a return gift. Just imagine you've created that bond and love over 3 nights of stay.
Unbelievable.
And that to me is, that larger fancy word, responsible tourism.
Yeah.
This is responsible tourism.
Yeah.
Right? You're connecting, and they're not doing it because someone has forced them. They're doing it because they are possibly feeling the need to share their love or share their celebration or give back, or however you want to put it, right? So this is what to me is the most satisfying part of heritage tourism, cultural tourism, and of Bari Kothi, what we've been able to create.
It's amazing. I mean, I don't remember myself. Maybe once or twice I must have called up a hotel, that also for some need, but to maintain a relationship after you've gone is something special that I think you have created. Absolutely.
No, thank you. We and to be honest, I had a little role to play. It's our people, our team there, and I'm not calling out on names, but it is them that they connect. So every time someone meets me and tells me about it, they start with the names. They give me at least 5 names, and they ask, "How is that guy? How is that girl?"
Oh wow!
Can you imagine how satisfying it is that you've been able to create a platform where all these players and actors and actresses can come and perform?
Yeah, I feel a hotel is essentially the service of the people who are there, and putting those people in the front is very, very important, because otherwise your guest is only building a relationship with brick and mortar, right? Now they're going a layer above that. So amazing. I want to ask you a question. If you can take your time and think about it. If you can give us an anecdote or maybe a story of any guest out of all of these ones who've left a lasting impression on you, who've changed the narrative, or who made you think that what I am doing is doing something right.
Interesting. I'm not. Am I doing something right or wrong? We'll just see. But 2 things at the top of my head. So there's this one guest who came in and said that, "Oh my God, you don't know what you have." And I have seen this. We were in a baul performance, which is a folklore sort of genre in Bengal, and he was just mesmerized, and he said there's a Nagaur music festival, and these guys, if you're able to send them up there, it'll be amazing. So we were just appreciating. And midway through, he said that, you know what, the road journey, etc., let me do, why don't we have choppers? And he instantly called up one of these airline owners, and he said, hey, can we figure out choppers? And he went and he saw. So this is the kind of involvement that people have in one night, 2 nights of staying at Bari Kothi, have been able, that ownership, that nahi, hum kar rahe hain isko theek. And another guest said very nicely that, the amount of effort you guys as a family are putting in, it's not sustainable. Today you will grow old. Today you will grow old, for the lack of a better word, and it's not sustainable. You guys can't keep doing it as a family. And that really moved me and touched me. And I'm like, damn, we are trying to build something that survives us, right? Because we are people of heritage. We take utmost glory in the past, but at the same time, as the newer generation, you look at the future and you align the future with the past. And I'm like, I'm not going to let this die. And then that sort of changed my narrative of how we operate at Bari Kothi. I haven't been to Bari Kothi for the last 6 months, and I was mentioning to you earlier, and I take utmost pride in it. That means we've been able to create some kind of a structure which can self-operate itself, which is not dependent on one person, which is the worst scalable model you could create. And coincidentally, and when you say that, when you asked me the question, you said take some time, and I didn't, because it was at the top of my head. And I just now recall another third example, and it all ties down to the same thing actually. So I promised that the first 500 guests at Bari Kothi, I will personally host. I'm not a hotelier, so I don't know how this works. So let me first, hands down, host people. We'll create SOPs and we'll do it, because I didn't know who to copy, right? And there was no one doing this. Literally, at the cost of bragging, we were pioneers in what we were doing in the part of the world that we were doing, right? So I couldn't copy anyone. So it had to be self-made. We had this amazing British guest who's also a very well-known travel agent, and she'd come and she stayed with us, and she had come to essentially experience Murshidabad to send more British guests. And she said, Darshan, there's in one condition I'll send guests to you. You have to be there, because I'm telling you, I've seen multiple properties which have miserably failed because the owner is now not there at the property, right? And I looked and I said that I can't do this. I cannot do this. I cannot be doing this one thing where what we've started is a massive fire and is a massive cause. It cannot stop at 15 suites impacting 2,000 people. This has the ingredients to make mass movements of 20 million people. We are talking about 2,000. It's not going to happen. So it cannot be about me. And then gradually we made all SOPs, structures around not getting dependent on a person, not getting dependent on one thing. We then created, imagine the madness. So someone said that, nahi, ye story kaun sunayega? So I said, koi baat nahi. Diwar baatein karenge. So we created something called wall stories. So whatever I would say, if I was hosting you and I showed you कि यहाँ पे ये होता था, यहाँ पे ये होता था, I said कि write it down. Put a frame, write the whole thing down, and the host who's there, who's making you explain, will explain you the same thing. If you yourself are roaming around, it's as if I'm over there, and you can hear the story that I have to say. And then you have audio points. You put on your earphones. You can hear. You want to hear it from my voice. You can hear it from a voice also. So that cannot be person dependent. So when you have the right cause and the right thought process of doing, there's a solution for everything.
Very
So
clarity. I love your clarity of
so,
thought.
and then you take that and you make that into a book.
Yeah.
It has to be monetized at some level.
Yeah.
So now we are taking all the stories, putting it in a book. Now it's available for 200 rupees for sale.
Lovely.
So this is what is lacking. We don't look at heritage tourism in that manner. And if you're able to do these things where and what's wrong with making, so earlier we were very shy. अरे हम कैसे बोलेंगे हम पैसे बना रहे हैं, एंड हम कैसे बोलेंगे हम ये 200 रुपए का हमने बुक, अरे क्यों नहीं बेचेंगे हम? आई एम नॉट डूइंग चैरिटी विद बड़ी कोठी, एंड आई डोंट इंटेंड टू, वी आर नॉट मेकिंग मनी एट बड़ी कोठी, दैट्स अ सेपरेट थिंग, बट वी डोंट, that's it, because the model is such.
It has to be self-sustaining.
Correct. And over there, if I don't make money selling these books, then I'm stupid. I'm not a good entrepreneur. So you have to look at different ways and forms where you can monetize, because you're doing it for a larger cause, not to fill your own coffers, but to keep that heritage alive by creating this community. You and I talking about Murshidabad for an hour, that in itself is the biggest thing that the 200 rupee book is done.
Yeah, yeah.
So
This conversation is it would not have happened probably a decade ago. I completely agree. So, what is your plan with Bari Kothi? Like, if I was to ask you a very businessy question, right? Like a 5 year plan, do you have a vision? I'm sure, like, you already sort of hinted at the fact that you want to increase it from 15 rooms to about 50 rooms. But my question is more towards, do you look at it as a project only for Murshidabad and because of your personal connect, or do you want to empower more villages in Bengal, or maybe even in the larger part our country India? Do you look at Badi Kothi as a franchise that you want to give away, or something that is just your own baby?
very interesting. You've touched so many things, and I could speak for 2 hours. It's like poking every neuron in my brain. Short answer: I think this is a very powerful model that we have been able to create to some level. We definitely want at least 15 Badi Kothis within Bengal, 26 odd districts in larger districts in Bengal. And forgive me if I'm wrong on that exact number. And the power of storytelling and the assets that each of those districts by itself has, you will be amazed. If you hear stories of Bakura, if you hear stories of Purulia, you see the architecture in Purulia, you see the architecture of around Bardhaman, you will be jaw dropped. And I speak from one prism of heritage tourism, right? And cultural tourism. I'm not even talking about river tourism. I'm not even talking about mountain tourism, adventure tourism, not even going there, ecotourism. I see their person. We have been able to document at least more than 50 palaces within Bengal that immediately can be converted to a hotel.
Wow.
Now the question is, how do we do it? Who owns it? We are working on it. These take time. It's one man trying to do. Now that it can't be person dependent. Now we are trying to get teams. We've got a national player. We are in discussion with an international player. We'll get them down. You have to create a much larger ecosystem, which is not so. These are insurance policies, right? So it's not person centric. आपने कुछ किया आधा हो गया खत्म हो गया, then no one else carries it forward. It's too much of hard work then, right? And it's too beautiful a model to fail. So once your partners get established, which is happening, and you're able to, so the way I look at it, that all of these districts with their local food, with their local folklore, with their local skill sets, with their local people, are being able to offer genuine, authentic, the two things that Bari Kothi stands for. That experience is offered in a luxurious manner at a price point where people will understand that this is not something that has happened by the by. It is, everything has been thought about, everything has been detailed, and most importantly, tick marking 17 of the UN SDGs. That is the center of Bari Kothi. So yes, that's how we would look at Bari Kothi. No, we will not leave Bengal as we look at it right now. I'm a hard Bengal boy. I feel, and I can keep talking about it as much as you want. Bengal, I think, is that cusp of change. And you mark my words, in 5 years, not only Bengal, heritage tourism in Bengal will 100% change in the next 3 years, if not 5. And Bengal by itself will completely change. You don't have a choice. You can see, for me, it's like an X-ray vision. I just don't. I'm not saying it just for the heck of saying it. For me, I can see things happening. When, say, for example, Gurgaon happened, this madman DLF was buying everything, making these tall glass buildings in the middle of nowhere, and everyone was looking at KP Singh and being like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you doing? Are you mad?" But he was seeing something which would happen. I'm not being arrogant to compare myself with stalwarts such as KP Singh, but I'm saying I'm being able to see something happening here, and you mark my word, something will happen in the next 5-7 years.
I think
Not
it's
even
very
7
well put.
years.
Even I agree with you, because I think, and we had another guest who came on this podcast, and he said something very interesting. He said we are a melting pot of cultures created in 300 years. which is a very short life, right? Because that's our history, like colonial history, post-colonial history, if you really think about it. You have other cities like Banaras and which are like far older than us. But what happened in Calcutta in the last 200-300 years did not happen anywhere in India, because we have so much, so many religions and so many people from so many walks of life come together and create history. It is somehow embedded that we at some point in the future will use that to grow, right, as an advantage to us. It is an advantage because we have buildings which are made by Christians, we have buildings of Muslims, we have Hindus, we have Brahmins, we have every community making their architecture in their own way and pouring their own sort of belief systems into it and their own cultural significance. So this sort of fabric has been created. It's just going to thrive.
I think from that, you take an absolute peak of 1600s and you bring down that to 2025. This is where, as you very nicely said, that I think it has taken over. Everything has happened. You've gone from there to here, and you're on the curve up. You have seen you're so experienced to have dealt with every form of government, every form of narrative. You've seen people literally in horse chariots on the roads of Calcutta. There were people, and if you hear these stories, it'll get goosebumps. So this guy would only send his clothes to Paris for his laundry.
My
Because
God.
he loved the smell of laundry in Paris. So Calcutta has seen that, right? Where you would be abused today and put to, all kinds of torture. And from there to today, where we are seeing that, there's a lot of development issues that we have to go through, and we'll do it. But together as a state, I think it's bound to happen. And I know that for a fact that today, if you see roads to Murshidabad, 3.5 hours from Calcutta, you would be amazed with the quality of roads that have been built in rural Bengal. You asked me this 7 years ago, I would have said a different narrative. Again, people will say no work is happening in Bengal. It's the perspective of what work is happening and not all work is happening. The biggest retail companies have got made in Bengal. So, anyways, the list can go on, and that's
Yeah, it can
another
go on.
topic of discussion. But no, we would not intend to franchise Bari Kothi as of now. It's too close to our thought process of how we need to operate. And I think we're still very naive, and we are still very young, and we are still evolving. We're still making a lot of mistakes. We are still learning. That, I think, is a little bit of a journey more than 5-7 years. Once you're at that 15 years, operating about 100 odd rooms across different districts, then standard, because franchising, the biggest thing is standardization. Till the time you're not able to have the standard operating processes, I don't think any brand is ready for franchising itself. So that I think would answer your question.
So my next question to you is going to help people who are dreamers the way we are, and it's going to help me also in the long run. I want you to impart some wisdom towards the people who are passionate about preserving history, culture, and heritage of India. What one piece of advice would you leave our viewers with when they want to go on this path of preservation?
All the words that you said, it has that underlying bit that you have to be mad, to be passionate about something. So heritage, again, connecting my previous point, look at it as a business to start with, right? So it's bechara nahi hai, CSR paise se isko bacha lo. Please remove that thought process, not charity. So the moment you start looking at it as a business, then imagine heritage as a startup. This, my friend, is the most difficult startup to be in. Capital intensive, low IRR, and I can give you 6 other points of business economics of showing how heritage is the most difficult form of startup. However, the satisfaction, the impact it causes, the larger cause it addresses is too high for it to not be done to start with. Second, in this business of heritage economics, think of an old palace. आपको टूटा फूटा पैलेस है, आपको जमीन के भाव में मिल गया, नथिंग, उसमें थोड़े आर्किटेक्चर वगैरह है, जमीन के भाव में आपको मिल गया, एंड टिपिकली इन रूरल पार्ट्स ऑफ व्हाटएवर. नाउ इमेजिन जस्ट पुट इन, से यू बाय इट at 10 rupees, say 10 rupees you bought it, which is at very low cost. You put in another 2 rupees, 20%. You put 2 rupees into that 10 rupees to basic restoration. I'm not saying adaptive reuse, make it into a hotel, da da da. You've now just put basic restoration work and you've reignited the history. Now, this 10 rupees plus 2 rupees should give you 12 rupees. But this 10 plus 2 in heritage economics becomes 30, because instantly now you have a Victoria Memorial which can be made functional in whichever form with history, and that is the beauty of anyone dealing with any kind of preservation. Heritage preservation is a very strong word. Heritage revival, that's the right word. Anything of that sort, because what you have the power is to add very little and to gain a lot more, because you've just got something that cannot now. प्राइस कहाँ से आता है? आप या तो ट्रेड कर रहे हो मार्केट में, या कोई लेन देन करता आ रहा है, बेचता आ रहा है. अब ये अंगूठी, आप अगर कोई अंगूठी पहने, अब इस, ये अगर अकबर का अंगूठी है, ये अगर किसी और राजा का अंगूठी है, इसका वैल्यू एज अपोज टू किसी का, कोई राजे का नहीं हो अंगूठी, व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस? अ स्टोरी.
It's only a story.
It's only, and if you can bring that back, you today have something 5x, and that is the beauty of the heritage economics. Coming to point blank your answer, what is that one word of advice? A, you can't fake it. You can't, there is no ways you can uh, uh, not do this if it's not coming from your heart. You will never succeed. So you will, every entrepreneur realizes midway through that, am I getting that feel or not? And if your gut is not, that feel is not there, abandon immediately, because you've got the most difficult startup form that you've subscribed into. So अगर मन से नहीं आ रहा, तो please आप instantly छोड़ दीजिए. And the second thing is that this one, any form of revival that you speak of, cannot be done alone. This revival has to be done with community, with people. So this is the most selfless form of growth. अगर वो आपके पास naturally नहीं आता है, and if you're very selfishly driven, then you become an academic. आप अपना बढ़िया बुक्स लिखिए उसके बारे में, आप सारा चीज कीजिए. बट आई, इन माई लिटिल विजडम, yes, I've lost hair, I've got enough white hair also, but in my little wisdom, I may be wrong, but I truly feel you'll end up being a solo rider academic as opposed to a researcher. And there's no right or wrong, these are different paths, right? As opposed to a true revivalist who has got communities moving together. ये अकेले का चीज नहीं है to save something. That's what I feel. And अगर आप फिर देखते नहीं नहीं आपने बड़ी कोठी अकेले बचा, that's hogwash. Of course not. Everything has to come together. We provide little bits. You're a director. That doesn't mean the director is the best guy. You have to get the actor. You have to get the producer. The music guy has to be there. You know, if that is not there, no one is no one, right? So I truly feel that this is a community driven thing, and without that, no revivalist project has been successful, will be successful.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that really, really informative answer. Usually, when we end our interview, we ask one very fun question, to our guest who comes. The one that I thought of for asking you for this episode, which would be quintessentially something that you would be able to answer, is wait, I'm going to phrase it properly so you'll be able to think of it properly. If you could invite any historical figure from Bengal's past to visit and stay at Bari Kothi, who would it be and why?
Oof. You've ruffled so many feathers in my head. I would, for a fact, like to bring in Jagat Seth. And how can I? You're the very nasty question. Very nasty question. Because these are like me choosing between my 5 fingers. एक finger को आप choose कीजिए. I need to call, like, we are talking about community. You asked me to choose one person. So wrong. I will choose Jagat Seth for that one reason. The story of rise and fall, and to just understand from a man who had reached his heights, and to see, and of course any of these guys would come and they would have seen all of this happen, and to possibly make them experience, because they have experienced that part of Bengal, they've seen that part of Bengal. For that reason, I'd call him Jagat Seth. But my other criminals or heroes, if I may say, I would love to have Amir Zafar's, Sirajuddaulah, all these guys, the main villains and actors of Bengal, to come and see this different Renaissance period that is happening, including Murshid Quli Khan, after whom Murshidabad is named, to see how, multiple things were done with a certain goal, and how the narrative over time changes, and what you start, certain times you start something with a certain intent and it wholly changes. And now we are just trying to get it back to what that original possibly thought of, that all of these guys who I've named, at the end of the day, we all, including ourselves here, have one common goal: the success of land. That was the underlying bit of it. So I think it would be wonderful to have all of these guys also see and discuss, and it would be wonderful. You've stirred my imagination to a different level. We will use AI to generate this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Dudhoria, for being on our show. I think I had a fantastic conversation and very, very informative understanding of what Murshidabad's history is and its place in the present day world, and especially Bari Kothi's involvement and its contribution towards development.
Thank you so much, Yash, and formally just apologizing, because I feel that to ask one person to talk about one region is so much of load, because you are now scripting narratives about the region, so you can make a lot of mistakes. So for that, apologies for anyone who hear this and feels that I've not depicted Murshidabad the right way. And B, thank you so much, because through these little platforms, what we are able to do is spread the word of our mission, of our goal of Bengal, of heritage tourism, of community development, of women empowerment, of artisanal empowerment. And it's very important that people such as yourself continue to do this and get more people in. And I think this is modern day expression. This is modern day Michils. Yeah. This is modern day, Dharmtala Chalo. This is what it is, right? Yeah. So this is modern day. So thank you so much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to talk about Murshidabad and Bari Kothi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of Host Diaries. If you felt transported, even for a moment, we'd love for you to stay a little longer. Hit that like button if this story spoke to you, subscribe to join us on more journeys across India, and tap the bell icon so that you're the first person to know when a new episode drops.